is over, the preseason's in the books, and we're ready to start the 2011 NFL season. We'll go division by division in a minute, but first, let's take a look at the power rankings. I think the Green Bay Packers have to be considered the number one team right now, fresh off their Super Bowl win, and until someone knocks them off, they have that top spot. Number two is the off-season champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. They made a lot of changes, they brought in some good players, and I'm sure they'll be a preseason favorite to win the Super Bowl by many. Next is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were the AFC champions last year, and they're always tough. Number four, my New York Jets. And again, Rex has made it clear that this team has Super Bowl on its mind. Five is the Atlanta Falcons. They led the NFC with a 14-2 record last year, and I'm sure that Matty Ice and Roddy White will be a tough combo once again. Number six is the New England Patriots. With Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, that team will always be solid. I have the Baltimore Ravens at number seven. They've always been known as a tough defensive team, but now with Ray Rice, Anquan Bolden, and Joe Flacco, they also have the offensive weapons as well. Number eight, the New Orleans Saints, the champs from 2 years ago. They've lost Reggie Bush, but replaced him with Darren Sproles and rookie Mark Ingram, and also made some moves on the defensive side of the ball, so I think this team will be just as good, if not better, than last year's version. Number nine is a team that's been up and coming since they were an expansion team, the Houston Texans. They continue to improve year by year, and I think they're ready to make the jump into the playoffs this season. Rounding out the top 10 is New York's other team, the little brother, the New York Giants. If I had to choose a breakout team from each conference, I would choose the Detroit Lions as well as the Houston Texans. The Lions ended on a 4-game winning streak, and Jim Schwartz has really turned that team around. They now have a solid front seven, and Sue is an all-pro player. As for the Houston Texans, they've had a top-notch offense for the last couple of years with Matt Schaub, Andre Johnson, and now Arian Foster after his performance last year. Wade Phillips comes over from Dallas to be the defensive coordinator, and he believes that he can turn Mario Williams, the 290-pound defensive end, into an outside linebacker. Should be interesting to see how that experiment works out, but regardless, this team is ready to make that next step and be a playoff team. Let's take a look at the youngsters. We got some interesting rookies coming in, and some of them will make an impact right away. On the offensive side of the ball, there's a couple of rookies that stand out. One is the previously mentioned Mark Ingram of the New Orleans Saints. I think he can come in right away and be productive for them. Next is Julio Jones, the wide receiver whom the Atlanta Falcons gave a whole lot up to get. He should be interesting next to Roddy White as he pulls some of the attention away from him. You can't double team both of them. Another offensive rookie who I think is going to have an impact is Daniel Thomas, the running back who was drafted by Miami. He's actually my choice as Offensive Rookie of the Year. Mark Ingram may be the better running back, but he's also in a stable of three, and that New Orleans offense sure loves to pass the ball. I think Miami's a great fit for Daniel Thomas because they love to run the ball. They just got rid of Ronnie Brown and Ricky Williams, and I'm sure he'll be getting a lot of carries this year. On the defensive side of the ball, two guys stand out for me. One is Von Miller, who was drafted by the Denver Broncos. He's an outside linebacker who looks like the real deal. And also Patrick Peterson, the cornerback who was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. Both of these guys are very interesting defensive prospects, and I could see them being great players in the future. Now let's go division by division and see who I think will come out on top. We'll start in the AFC South, where Peyton Manning and the Colts have long been the class of this division. Unfortunately, due to injury concerns, the league's best quarterback status could be in question. Therefore, I think Andre Johnson, Matt Schaub, and the Texans will be much better this year and have a shot at winning this division. Chris Johnson is a dynamic player, and he leads the league in yards since he's been in the league. However, he can't do it on his own, and with a rookie coach and quarterback, this team's not ready to win quite yet. That's why I have Houston winning this division and the Colts missing the playoffs. Moving on to the AFC West. Kansas City was the division winner last season, and Matt Castle, Jamal Charles, and Dwayne Bowe, who hauled in 15 reception touchdowns last year, should be solid again. The Raiders swept the division last year and won a respectable 8 games, but once again, Al Davis fired his head coach. Tom Cable's out, and Hugh Jackson's in, as the Oakland Raiders coaching carousel continues to spin. Phillip Rivers is arguably a top 5 quarterback in this league, and despite a 9-7 record, the Chargers missed the playoffs for the first time since the 2005 season. In the NFL, you need a good quarterback to win, and San Diego Chargers have just that in Phillip Rivers. That's why I picked them to win the division. Now on to the AFC North, where the Ravens and Steelers reign supreme. Both teams finished with identical 12-4 records last year, but Pittsburgh won the division due to a better head-to-head record. Pittsburgh and Baltimore will be battling each other for the division crown once again this year, and those two in-season matchups with one another will be very important. I think Pittsburgh is slightly better and wins the division, but both teams make the playoffs. Let's take a look at the AFC East. The Jets and Patriots have one of the best rivalries in the entire league, which has only intensified more since the Jets beat them in New England in the playoffs last season. Led by Tom Brady and head coach Bill Belichick, the Patriots won 14 games last season, but their defense was a weak spot. With a defense that ranked 31st in the league, Tom Brady needed to be pretty much perfect on offense, and he couldn't have been much better en route to his MVP season, having 36 touchdowns and just 4 picks. Patriots also acquired veterans Chad Ochocinco and Albert Hainsworth in offseason trades, but it remains to be seen what kind of impact they will have. The Jets had a busy offseason as well, re-signing star receiver Santonio Holmes, cornerback Antonio Cromartie, and linebacker David Harris. The Jets also improved their defensive line through the draft. The Miami Dolphins lost Ricky Williams and Ronnie Brown and replaced them with Reggie Bush and rookie Daniel Thomas. The defense is solid, but with Chad Henne at quarterback, this team's going to have trouble. I think the Jets will win a close division race. Just to recap, here's my AFC playoff picture. Now it's time to switch over to the NFC, and we'll start out with what I consider to be the best division, the NFC South. Drew Brees and the Saints were Super Bowl champs just 2 years ago, and they're one of 3 teams that I think has the ability to win 10 games in this division. What makes Brees so dangerous is the fact that he doesn't have a go-to receiver. He spreads the ball out, and it's very hard to defend against him. Quarterback Matt Ryan led the Atlanta Falcons to a 14-2 record last year and the best record in the NFC. Now with newcomers Julio Jones and Ray Edwards, they expect to make another run, and hopefully last a little longer in the playoffs this time. The third potential 10-win team I was referring to were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who went out and surprised some people last year with the way they played. Head coach Raheem Morris has done a great job getting the most out of his young team, and young franchise quarterback Josh Freeman has developed nicely, having found a go-to receiver in second-year player Mike Williams, who had 11 reception touchdowns as a rookie. The Cam Newton era has started up in Carolina, and although I think he can be a decent quarterback, he's going to take his bumps and bruises like all rookie QBs, and I can't see that team winning more than 4 games this season. So I have 2 playoff teams coming out of the NFC South, but the Falcons taking the division. Next is the NFC East. Mike Vick had a fantastic season and a great comeback. Keep in mind, he was the backup to Kevin Kolb when the season began. Kolb has since been traded to Arizona in a trade that got Philadelphia a top draft pick as well as cornerback Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. But the Eagles were far from done as they went out and picked up the top free agent available, Nnamdi Asomugha, as well as a slew of other talented players. They also rewarded Vick with a $100 million 6-year contract, and although they look good on paper, they'll have to prove it out on the field. Their division rivals, the New York Giants, didn't have quite as good of an offseason. They let go of some longtime Giants on the offensive line and also lost tight end Kevin Boss and Steve Smith. Giants fans might not be happy about the outcome of their offseason, but none of the losses were too detrimental. I think they have enough talent on this team to still compete, but it's going to be up to Eli Manning to cut down his interceptions and play better. The Dallas Cowboys always have one of the most talented teams in the league, but they never seem to put it together on the field. Jason Garrett took over for Wade Phillips after a poor start to the season. Despite losing Romo to injury, Garrett managed to compile a 5-3 record over the second half of the season. DeMarcus Ware is one of the best players in the league, and the offense has weapons in place to potentially be explosive. I think Philadelphia wins the division, and the Giants and Cowboys are in the playoff chase, but just miss out. Now on to the league's JV division, the NFC West. The NFC West did not have a 500 record or better team, and the Seahawks won the division with a 7-9 record. Led by longtime Seahawk Matt Hasselbeck, they went on to beat the Saints in the divisional round of the playoffs in dramatic fashion. In the offseason, Hasselbeck signed a multi-year deal to become the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans, and Tavares Jackson was brought in to replace him. Jackson has a familiar target to throw to in former teammate Sidney Rice, but he is by no means franchise quarterback material. In St. Louis, rookie Sam Bradford had an excellent season, amassing 3,500 passing yards without a significant go-to receiving option. Running back Steven Jackson is one of the best players in football, and newcomer Mike Sims-Walker gives Bradford another option to throw to. The Rams finished just a game short of making the playoffs last season, and I think they have a very good chance at coming away with the division this year. The 49ers have the talent at the skills positions to be a dominant offensive force, but former number 1 pick Alex Smith
has yet to put it all together going into his 7th NFL season.
The defensive side of the ball, they have the best linebacker in the league in Patrick Willis.
And they could very well make some noise this season. But with a new head coach and yet another offense for Alex Smith to learn, they're behind the 8 ball because of the lockout shortened offseason.
In 2010, the Cardinals showed that without a quarterback, it's tough to compete in this league. After being perennial playoff contenders with Kurt Warner, the team struggled mightily under Derek Anderson. And in the offseason, they pulled the trigger on a trade for Kevin Kolb and gave him a massive 5-year, $63 million contract with $21 million in guarantees. Which is a lot of money if you ask me, for a guy with a 73 QB rating and 11 career touchdowns.
But regardless, he's better than what they had, and thus I see them improving somewhat this year. I think the Rams win this division because of the continuity they'll have from last year, and I think Sam Bradford has a chance to be really special. Now let's move on to our final division, the NFC North.
The Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packers had a miraculous season last year. Despite losing 15 players to season-ending injury, Aaron Rodgers and company got hot at the right time and won numerous road games in a row, as the Packers played an elimination game after elimination game, leading all the way up to the Super Bowl. I believe Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the NFL, and I believe that the Green Bay Packers have the best receiving core as well. The Lions drafted Ndamukong Suh with the 2nd overall pick in last year's draft, and he had a monster rookie season, as he was an all-pro. Suh leads a unit that is arguably one of the best defensive lines in all of football, and head coach Jim Schwartz has done a nice job starting to turn this team around. The team ended the season on a 4-game winning streak, and there's definitely some talent on offense. It's just going to be up to QB Matt Stafford to stay healthy. Bears won the division last year behind a good defense and solid play from quarterback Jay Cutler.
They made the playoffs but lost to the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game. Lance Briggs has asked for a trade, and tight end Greg Olsen signed with Carolina.
So although they added Roy Williams, I expect this year to be much tougher for the Bears. I think the Packers will win the division, and the Lions will snag a wild card spot.
So these are my NFC playoff teams. I think the NFC Championship will be Philly versus Green Bay. And then the AFC will have a rematch, New York versus Pittsburgh. And I think the New York Jets will beat the Green Bay Packers in Indianapolis for the Super Bowl.
My breakout player for this season is Tampa Bay running back LeGarrette Blount. Aaron Rodgers is my choice for the MVP. I'm picking Jim Schwartz as Coach of the Year.
And I think if he can stay healthy, Troy Polamalu will repeat as Defensive Player of the Year.